Here's a handful of things that are popping into my head right now as we're talking about this too, is like, I think that evangelicalism gives you a lot of obviously really bad ways of dealing with emotions, like we've been talking about, but really bad mechanisms of how to interpret your own thoughts. So like,
yes.
One is the fact that you, at least depending on denomination, depending on tradition, whatever, you will often be encouraged to be always listening for the voice of God. And it's very easy for that voice of God to just be associated with one of the many voices in your head. And so, like, for me, for instance, a big part of why I needed to be kind of an agnostic atheist, leave the faith for at least 2 years, was because I identified God with any time a thought process was negative or hard. Anytime I was challenging myself, that must be God speaking. But sometimes I was unfairly challenging myself because I have chronic depression.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's that, no, I really like Tad DeLay's phrase, that enjoyment of turmoil. It's like the right, the voice of God was the self-critical one, and then it's like, oh, I have no self-confidence or executive function. Thanks, God.
Yeah. Okay, cool. If that was your voice, you've done nothing but damage me.
Right.
You know, like,
I don't know. Yeah, and just like all this stuff that like it makes you feel chosen and special and certain about a lot of things. The community provides comfort. You know, so it does all this stuff for you to some extent if you can kind of get with the program, but it just like kicks the can down the road on all the other stuff, because it's just deny, repress, say the magic words, feel forgiven, move on with your day, be a productive worker, contributive member of society, upstanding, clean folk. Meanwhile, vote for unlimited death and destruction. Anywhere, everywhere, all the time. Send your kid to the army.
Yep. Vote for the death penalty.
Vote for the death penalty. Support cops. You know, like, yeah. You know, the extent, right. It's to feel good while enjoying the spectacle of institutionalized violence around you, and expectorating the all the icky feelings you don't find pleasant. Washing that cerebrum clean.
Yeah.
And that, it just never worked for me, dude. I never got the same thing out of it that apparently every adult in my life did. You know?
Do you mean like the sense of fulfillment? You didn't get that? Or like the sense of... So like for me, I think one of the biggest ones was I got some of the fulfillment. And I know that especially because I spent 2 years trying not to be a Christian. And I was feeling a lack of that meaning in my life. So clearly that's what I did get out of it, right? But like, for instance, for me, it was guilt. Like that was the consistent thing, is like people seem to believe like, oh, if I believe hard enough, then God forgives me. And there's a reason the line in First Reformed, "Will God forgive us?" hits me really hard.
Yeah.
It's because I got the total depravity thing really crammed in my head, but I really struggle with the forgiveness thing. And
yeah.
So that it didn't wash and rinse the way it seemed to do with others, the way they were able to just let go of what they did. And I'm kind of using this also intentionally to segue this, because I think this is the thing I've had the hardest time processing from the Tad DeLay interview. And I think it's just an interesting one, is like, what is the correct relationship to have with guilt? Because on the one hand, clearly the way that Christianity functions in a lot of people's lives, it would be better if it wasn't there, because it is just a way to do some conscience hygiene.
Yeah.
And that's bad. But also like walking around and feeling guilty every single waking day of hour, because I know for a fact that, everything I do, everything I consume, everything I buy is sinful in a sense, because of, the people that are forced to produce it, the wage like theft that created it. Yeah.
Who's profiting off of it? And right. And the feeling that And the knowledge, let's face it, the knowledge that I am forced to participate in this to simply survive.
Yeah, like
to continue to draw breath.
It wouldn't be healthy to feel that guilt all the time. I just would never be able to be an adjusted human being. So like, where is that line? Because obviously I don't think Tad DeLay is encouraging us to just like get rid of the concept of redemption so much that we just feel guilt all the time. Obviously there's a degree of it that still needs to exist. And then me being still committed to the Christian thing to some extent or another, I have to hold on to redemption at some point because it's the whole fucking game here. But like, what's the correct way of it existing is what I'm struggling with. Because clearly the way evangelicals use it is not correct. That's not what redemption ought to be.
No, right. Yeah. Just saying the magic words and being forgiven. Turns out that seems to be mostly useful for monsters.
Yeah.
No, so that's interesting because as we've been exploring, like it generates all this anger, but it also is set up to prevent the believer from feeling a single second of shame.
And shame's good. It has it can be bad. Also.
It can be bad. It can be bad. It can be traumatic, depending on the circumstance. But I mean, again, talking about like my deconversion story, my negative testimony. Shame is such a key part of it. Like feeling the shame of a previous identity. Josh Borman brings this up at the end of the episode. Is like, I mean, part of growing up is like, making peace with the shitty person you used to be because of like the culture you were brought up in. Having an appropriate amount of reticence about it. Like, I mean, especially like, I mean, in my circumstance, like I mentioned, I've said and done things I'm not proud of. Like those are things later in life went back and reconciled with those people over, like, and admit, hey, sorry, I was a piece of shit.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get better, and the extent to which like that act of reconciliation would not have been possible without feeling some shame over my actions and words. And I think the thing that makes evangelicalism the most dangerous religion in the world is its hyper individualism and its absolute defense against shame.
This was a preview for a Patreon only episode, so check out the show notes if you want to hear more.